Hello, Mary, and welcome to Thursday evening.
Hello, Lindley. Nice to see you and nice to see you all, or imagine seeing you all since this is a webinar, but thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are here for our first fireside chat back when we really could be by a fireside because it's chilly again as we enter the cozy weather. And I'm delighted to be here with my colleague, Lindley Schutz, the assistant head of school, to talk to you about our plans for this year, and also to give you a little look back on how this fall trimester has gone. As we near the end of this fall trimester, we really want to celebrate with huge gratitude for our ability to be on campus daily for all students who wish to, and then also to be teaching students virtually. And we really want to celebrate the way that students have been showing up and relishing their time in this very pandemically altered school experience, or as I sometimes call it, the prison camp version of Derryfield compared to how free we usually are. But how kids are showing up and learning and adapting to innovative teaching and thriving. So this week, we also know is historic in the election that we are still in the midst of, and an unprecedented number of Americans, as we know, voted, and an unprecedented number voted by mail-in ballot. And so to help our students navigate this period and to keep our community bonded through this period, at community meeting last week, I talked to the students, hopefully to give them a calming understanding of how the counting and the certification process would go. And I also talked about guidelines for civil engagement with one another, and also gave them an understanding and reminder that at Derryfield, care and respect for others would absolutely be our guiding principles. And if you'd like to see those remarks, they are on our Derryfield YouTube channel. Earlier today, my remarks were followed up by our wonderful history department chair, Ryan Tanner Reed, who gave us a really fascinating short talk about other historical moments in presidential election history in which things were quite tense in the country, but also about how our democratic system and our legal system worked through those elections, and the outcomes were positive for the country. And it was both fascinating and reassuring. And you can also see those remarks on our school's YouTube channel. So I thank you. Just want to wrap that up by thanking parents for partnering with us as we work to raise patient and informed young people, and also to keep their well-being and sense of reassurance central. So thanks so much for that. So you may be wondering how Derryfield has been doing during this unprecedented fall with our new model of learning that includes, imagine I'm the teacher, a mothership classroom in front of me, and then a satellite classroom nearby, potentially with a teaching assistant, and then up on the screen, virtual learners who are at home, possibly in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, or China. And we have continued to adapt outside of the classroom. We're adapting every single thing we do. We have done loving nagging of students to stay 6 feet apart, and to they have been wonderful. I mean, wonderful. The mask wearing. Thank you for your patience with the Magnus app. Oh, what a morning we had. And just keeping our schools safe through all the health guidelines has gone so well. And I thank all our families, but I also thank our student leaders for working with us on that. So we're going to look at a couple of slides that are just going to show you the feedback that we have gotten from surveys of parents and also surveys of students about how things are going this year. So the first slide is one of parent responses that show a 98.7% response rate of parents saying that they're satisfied or highly satisfied with the quality of education that their child is receiving at Derryfield this fall, which we are just delighted by. And I just have to say that I feel like our faculty, but also every member of our staff, are complete superheroes and have made this possible. Such a team effort from everyone. So from buildings and grounds to technology, everyone has worked so hard. So thank you. The next slide is also one of parent response. And this asks parents, would you recommend Derryfield to family and friends? And we are honored that 97% of you said that you would. And so I'm going to ask you to please do so. We have our annual big open house this coming weekend. It's Sunday. And instead of having it be a long event in person like we usually are, we'll have a big Sunday online Zoom event, and then a shorter Monday and Tuesday Zoom events to follow up, each different. So just zip to our Derryfield website and you can sign up to join or to invite others to join. So thank you. The next gets into the students' evaluation of Derryfield. So just as a kind of caveat to that, or just to remember that when young people are asked their opinion, this is a tough crowd. So I just want to point out, if you see my remarks on the YouTube channel, I'd like you to remember that one of my children texted me after seeing it and the only comment I got was that my giant mask was too big for my face and made me look like, I believe, a Ninja Turtle or some other insulting character from fiction. And when I asked, well, what about the content of my remarks? I got no answer. So this is a tough crowd. And that's why we are delighted to have adolescents say 86% of them say that their learning in their courses is on track. So this slide is actually a composite answer of how they answered for their courses overall. And it's very recent. This was done last week. The next one speaks about has the year had a positive start? Has it been a positive experience? And 84.8% are agreeing or strongly agreeing. Then we go on to the next one. And this is about whether students would recommend Derryfield to their friends, and 88.5% say that they would, which is also pretty remarkable considering how many of our students are new to Derryfield. So we're delighted by that. And then this one is about student engagement, and we consider this a wellness indicator. So students were asked, are you feeling included? Are you feeling engaged in the student community, in the school community? So 91% saying this is so reassuring and gratifying to my colleagues and to me, because when you think about all the things that aren't happening that we would normally have, like social events, and I mean, these kids they have not had a whole season of coming home on the bus from a cross-country meet singing together. They are meeting with their teachers, but everybody has to stay at their table and not move. So we're just delighted with this response. It means that the warmth of the community is pervasive in spite of the limitations of the health guidelines. And there are so many. Think of it: no school picnic, no talent show, and still 91% feeling that they belong. This is we consider this a very important indicator that there's at least one adult within the community, says the student, who I trust and to whom I feel connected. This is important because basic research on at-risk kids show that the biggest indicator that you will not be at risk is that you have an adult outside of your family who you are trust and are connected to. And just to let you know, our counselors will be following up on the students who said that they disagree or that they don't know, because we think this is very important and we want to make sure everyone feels connected. So before we get into actually the calendar, I just want to mention a couple of things going back to the student happiness, that we've been delighted that over the course of the fall, we've been able to adjust or adapt our health foundation to add time to the schedule for more social interaction. So we knew that was something that was a top priority. So we've added time so that kids can meet with teachers, which was very important to them. We've added time. We've actually enabled upper school students to choose lunch cohorts and eat outside together. Seniors have been able to now order takeout food in. Upper schoolers now have privileges to arrive for their first class and depart as needed at the end. And middle schoolers are playing active games of their choice at recess. That being said, we want to keep working with student leaders who've been wonderful in helping us to bring more lightness. We also have made some mistakes. So we thought we were doing a bang up job on middle school recess. The kids were 6 feet apart, they were masked, we were super smug and self satisfied. And then we discovered if there had been one case of COVID of those children, the entire middle school would have been quarantined for 2 weeks. So we continue to learn, we continue to try to be as safe as possible. And a lot of times we have to keep remembering we've got to keep them in cohorts. We've got to be able to trace, and we're still learning as we go, for sure. So on to the calendar. So we keep adapting every aspect of school life in answer to the pandemic's many curveballs. And we are about, after Thanksgiving, to enter into what we're calling the family phase, where students will be on vacation or virtually learning from Thanksgiving through Martin Luther King Day. And we feel that that is going to be an opportunity for families to quarantine and then go visit family in other regions, other countries potentially, and then come back and be able to quarantine before coming back on Derryfield's campus again in January. We realized looking ahead that our traditional calendar, which was not going to work well with the state travel guidelines. So our traditional calendar, for those of you who are new, would have 1 week of vacation in February, then 2 weeks on campus, and then 2 weeks of vacation at the end of March. And that wasn't going to be a way to have kids have the maximum amount of time possible on campus. We also have a new snow day policy. So this was worked through with the student council last year. In a typical year, we may lose 1 to 2 weeks of school to snow days. This year, because of the technology that we have and our adeptness at virtual learning, we're only going to have one snow day, sort of one snow holiday, which will be for sure a powder day. And the rest of the days are going to be virtual learning days. And that will enable us to end school a week earlier. So as you look at this slide, it shows you that the last day of school here is May 28th in response to that new plan. This new calendar that we're looking at was shaped by our Derryfield Student Council, our trustees, our faculty, and staff. So we thank all of them for their help. So we're going to be combining the 3 weeks of vacation, so they're sequential, February, March, and the last week of February and into the first 2 weeks of March. For those students who would like to travel to places that are beyond the state travel guidelines, which at this moment, our state travel guidelines include all the New England states, that could change. So that's why I'm referring to them as the state travel guidelines at that time. For those students who want to travel, they can travel the first 2 weeks of vacation and then quarantine from March 8th to the 19th. That you can see that the week of the 15th through the 19th is yellow, and that means that we'll all be virtual that week. And that those students who make that choice can return to on-campus learning March 22nd. This is the best choice for students who would like to limit their virtual learning to that 1 week. For students who would like to travel all 3 weeks of vacation, they may attend school virtually the weeks of March or the days of March 15th through the 26th. That gives them 2 weeks of quarantine. And students but remember that students may attend school virtually if their parents arrange it with our middle school head and our upper school head into the spring term. I mean, that is really a choice that you can make. We just ask that you arrange it in advance. And now Lindley's going to talk to us a little bit about the daily schedule.
Thank you. Now that Mary has given us a glimpse of the winter and spring term, we're now going to focus our attention on the schedule that will begin in December. And this is, as you know, this is what we're calling the family phase schedule. For those of you who were with us last spring, you'll remember that the schedule that we put into place last March, April, and May was wildly successful. And so we took the feedback from students and families and teachers about that schedule, tweaked it, and made these improvements in this schedule that will now unfold as we move into family phase. Family phase begins Tuesday, December 1st, and it ends in the middle of January, on January 19th, and students will come back to campus, or for those students who are virtual all year, we'll go back to, we'll begin that on January 20th. So this is the middle school schedule for family phase. The school day will begin at 8:45 and end at 2 o'clock. You'll see that each of the 4 class periods of the day is 60 minutes. And that 60 minutes is set aside to develop deep academic work and to continue to build community between teachers and students. It also gives our teachers the time to and flexibility to pivot between synchronous and asynchronous teaching. As you know, our teachers have worked with the Malone School Online Network for 10 years, and from that experience have learned so much about what excellent online teaching looks like. And what we've learned is that camera time is really intentional time. That kind of synchronous time is used for things for students to synthesize their learning, to interact personally, to confirm what they're learning, and to check for understanding. It's time that's set aside for things like lively discussions and debates, and for students to check in with their teacher to follow up very specifically about questions. Asynchronous time is also critical, and it looks like things like pair students working in pairs or students working in small groups to do different kinds of individual group tasks. They might be working on a project, they might be watching a documentary or reading. But that 60-minute class period gives teachers and students the time to pivot between those two critical modes of learning. In addition, you can see that there are 15-minute blocks between each classes. Those are times for students to go get a snack, to step outside, to stretch, to get a breath of fresh air. There's a 45-minute class lunch time. And then each afternoon, there's ample time for students to get extra help from teachers. That extra help time isn't required. Students are not required to show up for attendance. But if a teacher or advisor recommends it, then we would expect a student to be present for that extra help time. Dana, we can now go to the next slide. So this slide shows the upper school schedule, and you'll see that much of the upper school schedule is similar. There's also a 45-minute lunch period, and in the upper school, that might be time where students would meet for affinity groups or groups where they're gathered around a similar interest, such as reading a book club group or working on different kinds of clubs. The 8th block is time that will be continue to be set aside for community meetings and advisories. That time is essential for continuing to build community. It's also time for students to meet for activities such as Model UN or mock trial, robotics, or equity club. And it's also time for students, for the seniors to meet, for example, for LEAD, for planning for ISPs, and for class meetings. So we're really excited about this schedule. And just as we have throughout the fall, we'll continue to reach out to students and faculty for feedback to see if any modifications need to be put into place as we move through. And now I think Mary has one more calendar update for all of us.
I do. And before I do that, we're doing very well for time. And so if you have a question that you'd like to put in the chat, please feel free to do so. And so I'm just reminding everyone that open house is this weekend, and you just go to the Derryfield website to sign up. Please share it with on your social media would be lovely as well to support the school. Lindley?
Great. And I just wanted to remind everyone that on Monday, November 30th, we'll be meeting for conferences. The conferences that we held last spring were so popular that we've decided to continue with that opportunity for students to meet with advisors and their parents. So it will be required for upper school and middle school students to attend. And we would just remind you to please, before November 15th, to go into Calendly. You will have received an email from your advisor showing you how to do that to set up your time. And if you need any help with that, you can reach out to Andrea Stevenson in the middle school or Diane Will in the upper school.
Great. So, I thank you for coming tonight and taking a break from watching election results. We appreciate you being with us. Next week, we'll be having a fireside chat as well. Actually, I should say after this, there is a college counseling event at 7 o'clock. And if you want to find more information about that, just go to our website as well. Love to have you for that. And then next week, our fireside chat will feature Bill Westenberg from the Creative Arts Department and Chris Hetler from the Athletic Department, talking about how things have been going in those areas, but also looking forward to the winter in those areas. So I am delighted that we were, I think, fairly efficiently conveyed a lot of information. Please keep looking at nuts and bolts, and we'll put the calendar and the schedule linked into nuts and bolts if you would like to see those things spelled out for you as well. So thank you so much and have a great night. Thanks,
Thank you.
Lindley.
Good night.